Korean Mafia's boss is shocked to see his ex as a doctor. Then he notices a girl who looks exactly like him. On May 25, 2013, in the quiet coastal city of Tongyong, a foreign physician arrived at the local hospital carrying a past no one there could have imagined. In the public records, she was simply Dr. Amara Elodie Han. In truth, she carried the weight of a life broken apart without warning. The turning point came years later, when a powerful man stepped into her consultation room, only to meet not just the woman he once lost, but a child who mirrored his face. Some encounters refuse to stay buried. Like the video, follow the channel, and tell us where you are watching from. The rain falls softly over Tongyong this morning, painting the hospital windows with trails that look almost like tears. Dr. Amara Elodie Han walks through the third-floor corridor with steps that echo a strange mixture of confidence and exhaustion. The kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from sleepless nights, but from years of carrying secrets too heavy to share. Her white coat is impeccable, pressed with the same precision she applies to every diagnosis, every treatment plan, every smile she offers to patients who will never know the woman behind the doctor. But there's something in her eyes, something the nurses whisper about during lunch breaks when they think she can't hear, a sadness that sits just beneath the surface, like a bruise that never quite heals. The kind of grief that makes you wonder what terrible thing happened to someone so composed, so seemingly put together. In the left pocket of her coat, folded so carefully it might as well be sacred, is a photograph. She touches it sometimes without realizing, a nervous habit, a ritual of remembrance. No one has ever seen it. No one has ever asked. And Amara has mastered the art of making sure they never will. The pediatric ward is busier than usual this Tuesday morning. Children's laughter mixes with the sterile smell of disinfectant, creating a strange harmony that Amara has learned to find comfort in. This is her sanctuary. This is where she can focus on saving lives, instead of examining the wreckage of her own. "Oma!" The voice cuts through the corridor like sunshine breaking through storm clouds. Han Yuri, 8 years old with energy that could power the entire hospital, comes running toward her mother with arms outstretched. Her school uniform is slightly disheveled, probably from playing too hard during recess, and her backpack bounces against her small frame with each enthusiastic step. Amara catches her daughter in an embrace that's both tender and slightly guarded, as if she's afraid of holding on too tight or not tight enough. "Yuria, what are you doing here? I thought grandmother was picking you up from school today." "She had to help at the restaurant, so I took the bus." Yuri beams with pride at her independence, completely unaware of how that smile, so bright, so fearless, sends a spike of something complicated through her mother's chest. "I wanted to show you my drawing. Look, look." She pulls out a crumpled paper from her backpack, smoothing it against her mother's coat with small hands that move too fast. It's a drawing of their small apartment overlooking the harbor, with 2 stick figures holding hands. One tall, one small. No father figure. There never is. Amara studies the drawing with the same careful attention she'd give an X-ray, searching for fractures, for breaks, for signs of damage that might need addressing. "It's beautiful, sweetheart. You're getting so good at drawing the ocean. Do you think my father would like it?" The question lands like a punch Amara didn't see coming. She freezes, just for a fraction of a second, but it's enough. Yuri notices everything. She always has. Those eyes, so impossibly dark and intense, seem to see straight through every carefully constructed wall Amara has built around certain topics, certain memories, certain names that must never be spoken. "I'm sure he would," Amara says carefully, her voice steady despite the chaos erupting in her chest. "Now, I need you to wait in my office while I see a few more patients, okay? There are snacks in my desk drawer." Yuri nods, but there's something in her expression, a flicker of curiosity, of questions forming, that makes Amara's stomach tighten. The child is too perceptive, too smart. She inherited that from both of them. The thought arrives unbidden, and Amara pushes it away with practiced efficiency. An hour passes. The afternoon shift arrives, bringing with it the usual organized chaos of a municipal hospital in a coastal city where accidents happen and illnesses don't discriminate. Amara reviews patient charts with the mechanical precision of someone who needs routine to survive, who needs predictability to keep the past from creeping into the present. Then her pager buzzes. Emergency evaluation needed. Room 304. She glances at the tablet, and the world tilts slightly on its axis. Patient name, Yang Seo Huan. The name stares back at her from the screen like an accusation, like a ghost made flesh, like every nightmare she spent 9 years trying to forget. Her hands, usually so steady when holding a scalpel or checking a pulse, begin to tremble. No, it can't be him. It's a common enough name. Seoul has millions of people. Tongyong is hours away from the life she left behind. There's no reason he would be here. No reason he would walk back into her carefully reconstructed existence. But something deep in her gut, that instinct doctors learn to trust, tells her she's wrong. Nurse Park appears beside her. Dr. Han, the patient in 304 is asking specifically for you. He saw your name on the staff board and requested, well, he seemed quite insistent. Amara's throat goes dry. What's the patient's condition? Possible cardiac event. He collapsed during a business meeting at the Tongyong Marina. His associates brought him in. Vitals are stable now, but he needs evaluation. Business meeting. Marina. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Sao Juan always did have connections to the shipping industry, always moved in circles that ordinary people only read about in newspapers, usually in sections she tried not to look at. I'll be right there, Amara hears herself say, though every instinct screams at her to run, to transfer the case, to claim a conflict of interest without explaining why. But she's a doctor first. She took an oath. And more than that, she needs to know. Needs to confirm whether the man who destroyed her life is really here, really within reach, really about to discover the truth she's hidden for 8 years. She walks toward room 304 with legs that feel like they're moving through water. Each step is a negotiation with panic. Behind her, she hears Yuri's voice calling out. The child must have gotten bored in the office and come looking for her. Amma, wait, I want to come with you. Yuri, no, but it's too late. The little girl catches up, grabbing her mother's hand with complete trust, completely unaware that she's about to meet the man whose existence Amara has erased from every conversation, every story, every possible future. Amara's hand hovers over the door handle to room 304. She can hear movement inside. A voice, deeper than she remembers, but unmistakable, speaking in low tones to someone, probably on the phone. She closes her eyes, takes a breath, reminds herself of every reason she's stronger than she was 9 years ago. Then she opens the door. The man on the hospital bed looks up, and time performs a cruel magic trick, collapsing years into seconds. Zhang Xiaohuan is older now, lines around his eyes that weren't there before, silver threading through his dark hair, a hardness to his features that speaks of things seen and done that change a person. He's wearing an expensive suit jacket draped over the hospital gown, and even in this vulnerable position, he carries himself with that same commanding presence that once made her feel protected and later made her feel destroyed. Their eyes meet. His expression shifts through shock, disbelief, recognition, and something else, something that looks dangerously close to hope. But then his gaze drops, down, to the small figure holding Amara's hand. Seo Juan stares at Yuri as if he's seeing a mirror that reflects 8 years into the past. The child stares back with innocent curiosity, tilting her head in that way children do when they sense something important is happening, but can't quite understand what. The resemblance is unmistakable, impossible to deny, written in every feature of the little girl's face. Amara watches realization dawn across Seo Juan's expression like a slow-motion disaster. His lips part, but no sound comes out. His hand grips the bed rail so hard his knuckles turn white. And in that moment, in the terrible, beautiful, devastating silence that follows, Amara knows that every carefully constructed lie, every protected secret, every safe distance she's maintained is about to crumble. Because Zhang Xiaohuan is looking at Han Yuri, and he knows. He knows she's his daughter. The silence in room 304 is so thick it feels almost solid, like something you could reach out and touch. Amara can hear everything with painful clarity. The steady beep of the heart monitor, the whisper of the air conditioning, the soft shuffle of Yuri's shoes against the linoleum floor, her own heartbeat pounding in her ears like a drum warning of approaching danger. Zhang Xiaohuan hasn't moved. He sits frozen on the hospital bed, his gaze locked onto Yuri with an intensity that makes Amara's protective instincts flare, like a fire doused with gasoline. She recognizes that look. She used to see it in the mirror every single day during those first terrible months after she left Seoul. the look of someone whose entire understanding of reality has just been shattered and reassembled into something they don't recognize. His lips move, forming words that don't quite emerge. His hand, still gripping the bed rail, trembles slightly. For a man who once commanded rooms full of dangerous people, with nothing but his presence, who made decisions that affected lives and fortunes without flinching, he looks utterly, completely undone. Yuri, bless her innocent heart, doesn't understand any of this. She looks up at her mother with those impossibly expressive eyes that are her father's eyes, though she'll never know it, and tugs gently on Amara's hand. "Amma, is this the patient you need to check?" He looks sad. The observation is so simple, so achingly pure, that it almost breaks Amara's carefully maintained composure. Out of the mouths of children comes truth that adults spend lifetimes trying to hide from. "Yes, sweetheart," Amara manages, her voice remarkably steady despite the earthquake happening inside her chest. She shifts into professional mode like armor, like protection, like the only defense she has against the avalanche of emotions threatening to bury her. "Mr. Zhang, I'm Dr. Han. I understand you experienced cardiac symptoms." The formality is deliberate, clinical, a wall built with words. Seo Huan finally tears his gaze away from Yuri to look at Amara. Really look at her. And she sees the exact moment recognition fully settles in. His expression cycles through disbelief, confusion, and then something that looks disturbingly like wonder, mixed with devastation. "Amara," he whispers, and the sound of her name in his voice, a voice she's heard in nightmares and suppressed memories for 9 years, makes her stomach twist. You're here. You're a doctor." "Dr. Han," she corrects sharply, with an edge that could cut glass. "And yes, I completed my medical training. Now, regarding your symptoms." The child, his voice cracks. He can't seem to help himself, his gaze sliding back to Yuri like a compass finding north. How old is she? The question hangs in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Amara feels every muscle in her body tense. Yuri, sensing something strange in the atmosphere even if she can't name it, presses closer to her mother's side. "That's not relevant to your medical evaluation," Amara says coldly, but her hands are shaking now, and she has to clasp them together to hide it. "I need you to describe what you were feeling before you collapsed." Seo Huan looks at her like she's just stabbed him, which in a way, she has. But he deserves it. He deserves every bit of ice in her tone, every wall she puts up, every moment of distance she forces between them. He lost the right to warmth, to explanations, to anything from her the night he believed lies over her truth, and threw her out of his life like she was nothing. "Chest pain," he says mechanically, still staring at Yuri. "Difficulty breathing. Dizziness. But Amara, Dr. Han, please, I need to understand. What you need is a cardiac evaluation," she interrupts, pulling out her stethoscope with movements that are too sharp, too quick, betraying the control she's desperately trying to maintain. "Yuri, sweetheart, go wait outside for a moment. But Oma, now please." There's something in Amara's voice that brooks no argument. Yuri, confused but obedient, nods slowly and walks toward the door. But before she leaves, she turns back and says to Seo Huan, with the kind of innocent kindness that only children possess, "I hope you feel better, Ajusi. My mom is the best doctor. She'll take good care of you." The words hit Seo Huan like a physical blow. Amara watches him close his eyes as if in pain, and for just a fraction of a second, she feels something dangerous stir in her chest, something that might be sympathy, or might be the ghost of old feelings she thought she'd buried so deep they could never resurface. The door closes behind Yuri with a soft click that sounds like a gunshot in the heavy silence. "Her name," Seo Huan says quietly, and there's a rawness to his voice that Amara has never heard before, not even in their most intimate moments all those years ago. "What's her name?" Amara doesn't answer. She approaches the bed with clinical detachment, placing the stethoscope against his chest to check his heart rate, avoiding his eyes, avoiding the questions written all over his face. "Han Yuri," she finally says, each word feeling like pulling teeth. Her name is Han Yuri. She's 8 years old. She likes drawing and marine biology and asking questions I can't always answer. "Han," he repeats, and she can hear the calculation in his voice, the math that any intelligent person would do. "Not Zhang. She's my daughter," Amara says with quiet ferocity, meeting his eyes now. letting him see every ounce of steel that kept her alive through pregnancy alone, through childbirth without him, through every milestone he missed. Mine. She doesn't carry your name because you didn't earn the right to give it to her. The heart monitor spikes suddenly. Seo Juan's breathing becomes labored, his hand flying to his chest. Amara's medical training overrides everything else. She hits the call button, checks his pulse, adjusts his position, her movements efficient and automatic despite the emotional chaos. Mr. Zhang, I need you to breathe slowly, in through your nose, out through your mouth. But he's not listening. He's looking at her with eyes that hold 9 years of questions, regrets, and realizations crashing down all at once. Oma? Yuri's worried voice comes from the doorway. She must have heard the commotion. What's happening? Stay back, sweetheart, Amara calls out, but Yuri is already moving forward, her small face creased with concern that's far too mature for 8 years old. The monitor alarm gets louder. Seo Juan's eyes roll back slightly, his body swaying, and then he collapses sideways, falling toward the edge of the bed. Amara catches him by pure instinct, her arms supporting his weight as the medical team rushes in, as Yuri screams, as the careful distance she's maintained for 9 years crumbles in the space of a heartbeat. The emergency response is choreographed chaos, nurses flooding into the room with practiced urgency. Dr. Diet, Baek Jin-woo, appearing at Amara's side within seconds, hands already reaching for the crash cart that thankfully won't be needed. Amara's training takes over completely, transforming her from the woman with a shattered past into the physician who has saved countless lives with these same steady hands. Vitals dropping, Nurse Park announces, her fingers on Seo Juan's pulse point. BP is 80/50 and falling. Get him flat! Elevate his legs! Amara commands, her voice cutting through the noise with absolute authority. There's no tremor now, no hesitation. This is what she does. This is who she is when everything else falls away, a doctor who refuses to let anyone die on her watch, even if that someone is the man who once made her wish she could stop existing. She works with mechanical precision, checking his airway, monitoring his breathing, barking orders that the team executes without question. Jinwoo prepares an IV line while Amara examines Seo Juan's pupils, checking for neurological response. His eyelids flutter, consciousness dancing just out of reach. Oma! Yuri's voice breaks through the clinical focus, small and terrified in a way that makes Amara's heart clench painfully. Is he going to die? The question hangs in the air like a specter. Amara glances back at her daughter, standing frozen in the doorway with tears streaming down her face, and something fundamental shifts inside her chest. This child, this beautiful, sensitive soul who feels everything so deeply, is watching a stranger collapse and asking if death is coming, and she doesn't even know she's watching her father slip away. The unfairness of it all crashes over Amara like a wave. Nurse Kim, please take my daughter to the waiting area, Amara says, gentler now, but still firm. Yuri-ya, he's going to be okay, I promise, but I need you to go with Nurse Kim right now. Can you do that for me? Yuri nods, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand, trying to be brave. As she's led away, she looks back one more time at the man on the bed, and Amara sees something in her daughter's expression that will haunt her later. A connection she can't explain, a recognition that exists beyond logic. The door closes. Amara refocuses. Seo Juan's vitals begin to stabilize under their ministrations. His color improves. His breathing evens out. Within minutes, he's conscious again, blinking up at the ceiling with confusion that slowly crystallizes into awareness. Welcome back, Jinwoo says with professional warmth. You gave us quite a scare there, Mr. Zhang. Seo Juan's gaze immediately searches the room until it lands on Amara. She's standing back now, letting Jinwoo take over the primary care, her arms crossed over her chest in a posture that screams defense mechanisms and boundaries. What happened? Seo Juan asks, his voice rough. Vasovagal syncope, most likely triggered by emotional stress, Jinwoo explains, checking the monitor readings. Your heart is structurally sound from what we can see, but we'll need to run more tests to rule out underlying conditions. Have you experienced episodes like this before? No, Seo Juan says, but his eyes never leave Amara. Never. There's weight in that word. Accusation and explanation and apology all tangled together. Amara feels it like a physical touch and hates that she still recognizes his emotional vocabulary after all these years. We're going to keep you for observation, Jinwoo continues. Standard protocol for syncope cases. Dr. Han, do you want to? I'm requesting to be removed from this case. Amara interrupts, her voice flat and professional. Conflict of interest. I'll arrange for Dr. Choi to take over. Jinwoo's eyebrows rise slightly. The other nurses exchange quick glances. In a hospital this size, where everyone knows everyone's business through the grapevine of gossip, this will be talked about for weeks. But Amara doesn't care. She can't do this. Can't stand in this room and pretend that the man on the bed is just another patient when his mere existence threatens to unravel everything she's built. Amara, please. Seo Hwan starts, trying to sit up. Stay down, she orders sharply, and he freezes at the command in her voice. You just experienced a significant cardiovascular event. Moving too quickly could trigger another episode. She's doing it again, hiding behind medicine, using clinical language as armor, but it's all she has. I need to speak with you, Seo Hwan says quietly, desperately. Just 5 minutes, please. You'll have plenty of time to speak with your assigned physician about your treatment plan, Amara replies, already moving toward the door. She can feel the walls closing in, can feel the careful compartmentalization she's maintained for 9 years starting to crack. If she doesn't leave now, she might shatter completely. It's about her, he says, and those 3 words stop Amara in her tracks. About Yuri. The room goes silent. Every person present suddenly becomes intensely interested in checking equipment, reading charts, finding reasons to look anywhere except at Dr. Han's face. Amara turns slowly, and the look she gives Seo Hwan could freeze fire. You have no right to that name in your mouth. She's my daughter, he says, and even though it's barely a whisper, it detonates like a bomb in the small space. Jinwoo clears his throat uncomfortably. We should give you both some privacy. No, Amara says firmly. There's nothing to discuss. Mr. Jang is confused due to his medical condition. I'll be submitting my case transfer immediately. She walks out before anyone can respond, before Seo Hwan can say another word, before the tears threatening to spill can betray her in front of her colleagues. The corridor outside feels too bright, too exposed. She walks quickly toward her office, her heels clicking against the floor in a rhythm that sounds like escape, escape, escape. But she doesn't make it far. She finds Yuri sitting on a bench outside the room, drawing in her sketchbook with fierce concentration, the way she always does when she's upset and trying to process feelings too big for her small body to contain. Oma? Yuri looks up, and her eyes are red-rimmed but dry. Is the Juicy really okay? Amara sits down beside her daughter and pulls her close, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo and chalk dust from art class. He's going to be fine, sweetheart. Sometimes grown-ups they get overwhelmed, like when you cry in the bathroom at night. The question is so unexpected, so painfully observant, that Amara feels her breath catch. She didn't know Yuri heard those moments, didn't know her daughter was aware of the grief she thought she'd hidden so carefully. Yes, Amara admits quietly, because she's never lied to her daughter, and won't start now. Like that. Yuri nods solemnly, then goes back to her drawing. Amara glances down and feels her heart stop. The sketch shows 3 figures, a woman, a man, and a child between them. The man's face is detailed in a way that can only come from careful observation. It's Seo Hwan. Yuri has drawn Seo Hwan. Why did you draw him? Amara asks, trying to keep her voice steady. Yuri shrugs, but there's something ancient in her eyes when she looks up. I don't know, Amma. When I looked at him, it felt like looking in a mirror. Is that weird? And in that moment, sitting in a hospital corridor with her daughter's innocent question hanging in the air, Amara realizes that the truth she's been protecting might not be hers to keep anymore. Seo Hwan wakes to the antiseptic smell of hospital sheets and the distant sound of monitors beeping in synchronized rhythm with hearts that aren't his. The observation room is smaller than the emergency suite, more private, with a single window that overlooks Tungyong's harbor, where fishing boats bob like toys on dark water. It's late afternoon now, the sky turning that particular shade of orange that makes everything look either beautiful or melancholic, depending on your state of mind. His state of mind is shattered. Doctor. Baek Jin-woo sits in the corner, reviewing charts on a tablet with the kind of focused attention that suggests he's been waiting for Seo Hwan to wake up. He's young, this doctor, maybe early 30s, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, and the sort of gentle demeanor that probably makes patients trust him immediately. How are you feeling? Jinwoo asks, setting down the tablet and approaching the bed with practiced caution. Like I've been hit by a truck, Seo Hwan admits, his voice rough. His chest aches, though whether from the cardiac event or from the weight of revelation pressing down on his ribcage, he can't tell. Where is she? Dr. Han, where is she? Jinwoo's expression shifts into something carefully neutral, the kind of neutrality that doctors perfect when delivering news patients don't want to hear. Dr. Han requested to be removed from your case. I'll be your primary physician during your stay here. She felt there was a conflict of interest. The words land like stones. Conflict of interest. Such a clinical term for the mess of their shared history. For the daughter he didn't know existed until 2 hours ago. For the woman he loved and lost and thought he'd never see again. I need to speak with her, Seo Hwan says, trying to sit up. His head spins slightly, and Jinwoo's hand is immediately on his shoulder, gentle but firm. What you need is rest. Your body just experienced significant stress. Doctor, Han was very clear that she doesn't wish to have contact with you beyond what's medically necessary. It's about the child, Seo Hwan presses, and he hears the desperation in his own voice and hates it. He's spent years cultivating control, building an empire through calculated decisions and strategic thinking, and now he sounds like a man begging for scraps. The little girl, Yuri. She's mine, isn't she? Jinwoo's expression doesn't change, but something flickers in his eyes. Acknowledgement, perhaps, or sympathy. That's a conversation you need to have with Dr. Han, not with me. And right now, she's made it clear she doesn't want that conversation. Seo Hwan closes his eyes against the fluorescent lights that suddenly seem too bright, too harsh. Memory floods back unbidden. Amara as she was 9 years ago, standing in his penthouse apartment with tears streaming down her face, trying to explain something about being set up, about lies someone told, about how she would never betray him, and him, so consumed by rage and wounded pride, refusing to listen, choosing to believe his advisor's evidence over her desperate pleas. He'd thrown her out, literally, had his security escort her from the building while she sobbed and begged him to just listen, to just believe her, to just give her a chance to prove her innocence. The memory makes him physically ill now. How had he been so blind, so arrogant, so absolutely certain in his righteousness that he couldn't see what was right in front of him? I made a terrible mistake, Seo Hwan says quietly, more to himself than to Jinwoo. 9 years ago, I accused her of something she didn't do. I believed lies because they came from someone I trusted. I didn't give her a chance to defend herself. And then she disappeared, and I thought she'd moved on, found someone else, started a new life. And instead she started a new life alone, Jinwoo says, his voice carrying a note of judgment that he doesn't try to hide. Raised a child by herself, put herself through medical school while working night shifts and caring for an infant. Built a career from nothing because she had no choice. Yeah, I'd say you made a mistake. The words are a slap, but Seo Hwan takes them because he deserves them. Deserves worse, actually. How do you know all that? Everyone at this hospital knows Dr. Han's story. Well, the version she tells anyway. Single mother, no family support, worked herself to exhaustion to get where she is. We all admire her. She's one of the best physicians we have. Jinwoo pauses, studying Seo Hwan with an expression that's equal parts curiosity and distrust. What I don't understand is how you could look at that little girl and not immediately know. The resemblance is striking. It is. God, it is. Yuri has his eyes, his bone structure, even the way she tilts her head when she's thinking. She's a mirror reflecting a version of himself he barely remembers, young and unscarred by the choices that would define him. I didn't know Amara was pregnant, Seo Hwan says, and the admission feels like pulling glass from a wound. When I ended things, she tried to tell me something, but I wouldn't listen. I assumed she was making excuses. I had her removed from my property before she could finish. The silence that follows is heavy with implication. Jinwoo looks at him with something that might be pity, or might be contempt. It's hard to tell. So you're telling me that woman went through pregnancy, childbirth, and 8 years of single parenthood because you were too proud to listen to a 5-minute explanation? Put that way, it sounds even worse. Seo Hwan has negotiated with dangerous people, made decisions that affected hundreds of lives, built a business empire through strategic thinking and careful planning. But when it mattered most, with the person who mattered most, he'd been nothing but a fool. "I need to make this right," Seo Juan says, and he knows how inadequate the words are even as he speaks them. What you need to do is recover and then leave them alone," Jinwoo interrupts firmly. "Dr. Han has built a life without you. A good life. She's an exceptional mother and a respected physician. That little girl is happy and loved and secure. The last thing either of them needs is you showing up with guilt and good intentions 9 years too late." The truth of it cuts deeper than any blade. But Seo Juan didn't build his entire life by accepting defeat when things got difficult. "I won't give up," he says quietly. "Not this time. I failed them once. I won't fail them again." Jinwoo shakes his head slowly. "That's not your choice to make anymore. Dr. Han gets to decide who's in her life and her daughter's life. You lost that privilege when you threw her out." Before Seo Juan can respond, there's a soft knock on the door. A nurse enters, holding an envelope. "This was left at the front desk for Mr. Jang," she says, handing it to Jinwoo with a curious glance. Jinwoo passes it to Seo Juan without comment. The envelope is plain, unmarked except for his name written in handwriting he'd recognize anywhere. Precise, controlled, beautiful in its restraint. His hands shake as he opens it. Inside is a single sheet of paper with 3 sentences written in that same careful script. "I don't owe you explanations after 9 years. Han Yuri is my daughter, and she doesn't need complications in her life. Stay away from us." And beneath that, a photograph. Old, slightly faded. It shows Amara and him from before everything fell apart, young and laughing at some restaurant in Seoul, looking at each other like the rest of the world didn't exist. Seo Juan stares at the photo, at the evidence of what they once were, and feels something crack open inside his chest that has nothing to do with cardiac events, and everything to do with realizing exactly what he destroyed. Tongyang is a city that thrives on whispers. In a coastal town where everyone knows everyone through some chain of connection, fishermen who supply restaurants, nurses who shop at markets run by patients' families, teachers whose students' parents work at the hospital, secrets have a half-life measured in hours rather than days. By the time Amara finishes her shift that evening, the entire hospital staff knows something dramatic happened in room 304. The story spreads like ripples in water. Dr. Han, always so composed and professional, removed herself from a case. Dr. Han, who never shows emotion, looked shaken. Dr. Han's daughter was crying in the corridor. The patient, some businessman from Seoul with expensive clothes and an air of danger, kept asking for her specifically. Amara can feel the weight of curious stares as she walks through the corridor toward the administrative offices. She ignores them all with the same practiced indifference she's cultivated over years of being a single mother in a country that still whispers about women who have children without husbands visible in the picture. Director Kim Hye-rin's office is on the 4th floor, overlooking the harbor. The older woman sits behind her desk with the bearing of someone who's seen every possible hospital drama and isn't impressed by any of them anymore. She's in her late 50s, with silver hair pulled back in an elegant bun, and reading glasses perched on her nose as she reviews documents. "Dr. Han," she says without looking up, "I received your case transfer request. I approved it, but I need to understand the nature of the conflict of interest." Amara closes the door behind her and sits in the chair across from the desk, trying to find words that explain without revealing too much. "The patient and I have a personal history. It would be inappropriate for me to continue his care." Hye-rin finally looks up, her sharp eyes assessing. Personal history. That's delightfully vague. She sets down her pen and leans back in her chair. "Dr. Han, you've worked here for 3 years. You're one of our most dedicated physicians. You've never once let personal matters interfere with your work. So when you suddenly remove yourself from a case and look like you've seen a ghost, I pay attention." "It won't happen again," Amara says quietly. "I just need to ensure that any future contact with Mr. Jang remains strictly professional and minimal." "Mr. Jang," Hye-rin repeats the name thoughtfully. "The businessman from Seoul, arrived with an entourage that looks more like private security than business associates. The nurses say he couldn't stop staring at your daughter." She pauses, letting the implication hang in the air. "Should I be concerned about safety, either yours or Yuri's?" The question catches Amara off guard. "No, he's not dangerous," Not like that. But he is dangerous in some other way? Amara struggles to answer. How do you explain that someone can destroy you without ever lifting a hand? That the real danger comes from reopened wounds and questions a child might start asking, and the possibility of a life carefully rebuilt being dismantled by inconvenient truths. He's from a part of my life I left behind for good reasons, Amara finally says. I need to make sure that part stays in the past. Hayrin studies her for a long moment, then nods. I'll note in the system that you're not to be assigned to his case under any circumstances. If he requests you specifically again, we'll redirect to Dr. Baek or Dr. Choi. And Amara? She uses her first name deliberately, a rare gesture of personal warmth. If you need time off, or if you need security measures in place, you tell me immediately. We protect our own here. The kindness nearly undoes her. Amara blinks back the tears threatening to form and nods. Thank you, Director Kim. Outside, the sun is setting over the harbor, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. Amara finds Yuri in the hospital's small garden courtyard, sitting on a bench with her sketchbook. The child draws with fierce concentration, her tongue poking out slightly the way it always does when she's focused. Ready to go home, sweetheart? Amara asks, sitting beside her. Yuri looks up, and there's something in her expression that's too old, too knowing. Oma, that man from today, the Ajusi who got sick, why did he look at me like that? Amara's throat tightens. Like what? Like he was sad and happy at the same time. Like he recognized me, but we've never met before. Yuri tilts her head in that characteristic way. It was weird. It made me feel weird too. Like I should know him. This is the moment. Amara can feel it hovering in the air like a choice that will determine everything that follows. She could deflect, could change the subject, could protect the carefully constructed story for a little while longer. Or she could start preparing her daughter for a truth that's going to come out eventually, now that Seo Hwan knows. Sometimes people remind us of things or feelings we can't quite name, Amara says carefully. It doesn't always mean something specific, but Yuri is too smart for easy answers. Do you know him? From before I was born? The question is so direct, so innocently cutting, that Amara feels her careful composure starting to crack. Yes, she admits quietly. I knew him a long time ago. Was he important to you? Amara closes her eyes briefly. Very important. Once. Is that why you looked so scared when you saw him? Scared. That's the word Yuri uses. And it's accurate in ways the child can't possibly understand. Not scared of physical harm, but scared of everything that man represents. Past mistakes, old pain, a version of herself she barely recognizes anymore. I wasn't scared, Amara says, but it's a lie and they both know it. I was just surprised. Yuri nods slowly, then returns to her drawing. Amara glances down and sees that the sketch has evolved. The three figures from before are now surrounded by details. A hospital, a harbor, mountains in the background, the man's hand reaching toward the child but not quite touching. Yuri, why do you keep drawing him? The question comes out before Amara can stop it. Yuri shrugs, but her small hand trembles slightly as she adds shading to the figure's face. I don't know, Alma. When I saw him, something felt familiar, like a puzzle piece I didn't know was missing. She looks up with those impossibly perceptive eyes. Is that weird? Before Amara can answer, her phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. Her stomach drops even before she reads it. I know you want me to stay away, but she deserves to know the truth, and I deserve a chance to make things right. Please, Amara, just one conversation. Amara stares at the message, at this intrusion from a past she's tried so hard to seal off, and realizes with sinking certainty that everything is about to change whether she's ready or not. She looks at Yuri, at this beautiful child who carries half of Seo Hwan's DNA and all of Amara's fierce protective love, and knows that the walls she's built are already starting to crumble. The only question now is whether she'll control how they fall, or whether she'll be buried beneath the rubble. 3 days pass like a slow-motion disaster. 3 days of Amara avoiding the 3rd floor where Seo Hwan remains for extended observation, a medical necessity that she suspects has more to do with his stubborn refusal to leave than any actual cardiac concerns. 3 days of declining his repeated requests for meetings, of ignoring text messages that appear on her phone at all hours, of pretending that her carefully ordered world isn't tilting dangerously off its axis. But Tongyang is too small for true avoidance, and hospitals are ecosystems where paths inevitably cross. On the 4th day, Director Kim calls her into the office with an expression that suggests this isn't going to be a pleasant conversation. Dr. Han, Mr. Zhang has filed a formal request for a supervised meeting with you. He's citing personal matters that need resolution and has agreed to any terms you set: witnesses present, limited time, hospital security nearby. He's been persistent. Amara feels anger flash hot through her chest. He has no right. He doesn't. Hayren interrupts gently. But he's also not leaving. His medical team has cleared him for discharge, yet he's refusing to go. He's paying for the room out of pocket and apparently has unlimited resources to continue doing so. At some point, we need to address this situation before it becomes disruptive to hospital operations. The manipulation of it makes Amara want to scream. Using his wealth, his influence, his sheer stubborn determination to force a conversation she explicitly refused. It's so typically Seo Huan, the man who always got what he wanted through sheer force of will. But she's not the same frightened girl he threw out 9 years ago. She's a mother, a physician, a woman who rebuilt herself from ashes. Fine, Amara says through gritted teeth. 1 meeting, 15 minutes, in the hospital conference room with Dr. Beck present, and absolutely no discussion of certain topics unless I explicitly allow it. Hayren nods approvingly. I'll arrange it for this afternoon, 2 o'clock. The hours until the meeting crawl by with excruciating slowness. Amara tries to focus on her patients. A child with pneumonia, an elderly man recovering from hip surgery, a young woman with complications from diabetes. But her mind keeps drifting to what she'll say, how she'll maintain her composure, whether she can survive being in the same room as him without falling apart. At 1:45, she checks her reflection in the staff bathroom mirror. She looks tired, older than her 32 years, with shadows under her eyes that makeup can't quite hide. But she looks strong, too, capable, like someone who has survived worse than this and will survive it again. The conference room is sterile and professional, with a long table and uncomfortable chairs that discourage lingering. Jin Woo is already there, sitting in the corner with his tablet, his presence a silent promise of protection. When Seo Huan enters at precisely 2 o'clock, Amara's breath catches despite every preparation. He looks different in civilian clothes, a simple black sweater and dark jeans that make him look less like the powerful businessman and more like the man she once loved. There are new lines around his eyes, silver threading through his hair that wasn't there before. He's aged, but somehow it makes him more devastating rather than less. Amara, he says quietly, and just her name in his voice threatens to undo her. Dr. Han, she corrects coldly, taking the seat across from him with the table as a barrier between them. You have 15 minutes. Use them wisely. Seo Huan sits slowly, his hands folded on the table in front of him. She can see him choosing words carefully, discarding and reconstructing sentences in real time. I need you to understand something first. 9 years ago, I was told you were working with a rival organization to compromise my business operations. I was shown fabricated evidence, photos, financial records, recordings. All of it seemed irrefutable, and you believed it without question, Amara says flatly, without asking me directly, without giving me a chance to defend myself. Yes, the admission is simple, bare. I was arrogant and stupid and so consumed by betrayal that I couldn't see I was being manipulated. My advisor, the one who showed me the evidence, was actually working against me. I discovered his treachery 6 months after you left, but by then you'd disappeared completely. No forwarding address, no contact information, nothing. I tried to find you. Not hard enough, apparently, Amara says, but something inside her shifts slightly at this new information. She'd always assumed he simply didn't care enough to look. I was in Busan, working night shifts at a convenience store while pregnant and studying for medical school entrance exams. The image clearly pains him. His jaw tightens, and she sees his hands grip the table edge. If I had known, you would have what? Swooped in to save me. I didn't need saving, Seo Huan. I needed you to believe me when it mattered, and you didn't. That's not something you can fix with apologies and excuses 9 years later. Silence falls heavy between them. Jinwoo shifts uncomfortably in his corner, clearly wishing he were anywhere else. You're right, Seo Huan finally says. I can't fix it, but I can acknowledge that I destroyed the best thing in my life because I was too proud to question what I was told. And I can ask, not for forgiveness, because I don't deserve that, but for a chance to know my daughter. The words hang in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Amara feels her entire body tense, feels the walls she's built threatening to crack completely. She's not, Amara starts, but the door bursts open. Yuri stands in the doorway, slightly out of breath, her school uniform askew. Amara's mother, Mrs. Hahn, appears behind her looking apologetic and flustered. I'm so sorry. She insisted. She said she needed to see you right away. But Yuri isn't looking at Amara. She's staring at Seo Juan with an expression that's part recognition, part confusion, part something that looks terrifyingly like understanding. It's you, Yuri says quietly. The man from before. The one who looked at me like he knew me. Seo Juan stands slowly, and Amara sees his eyes fill with tears he's fighting to control. Hello, he says, his voice rough with emotion. Your name is Yuri, right? Han Yuri, the child confirms, taking a tentative step into the room. You're the patient my mom was worried about. I'm feeling much better now, Seo Juan says, and Amara can hear him struggling to keep his voice steady. Thanks to your mother. She's an excellent doctor. Yuri nods, then looks between the two adults with that too perceptive gaze. Why are you both looking at me like that? Like something important is happening? The question pierces through Amara's defenses like a blade. She stands, moving toward her daughter with instinctive protection, but Yuri sidesteps her gently and continues to stare at Seo Juan. You have my eyes, Yuri says suddenly, matter-of-factly. Everyone always says my eyes are unusual, darker than Oma's, more intense. I used to wonder where they came from. The room goes absolutely still. Even Jinwoo has stopped pretending to look at his tablet. Mrs. Han gasps softly from the doorway, her hand flying to her mouth. Seo Juan looks at Amara with a question in his eyes, asking permission, asking for guidance, asking what to say to this impossibly perceptive child who has just connected dots no 8-year-old should be able to connect. And Amara realizes, with a clarity that feels like falling, that the choice has been taken from her hands. The truth is standing in this conference room demanding acknowledgement, and she can either guide it gently or watch it explode. Yuri, Amara says softly, kneeling down to her daughter's level. Sweetheart, this is Jang Seo Juan, and he's someone very important. Someone who helped make you who you are. Yuri tilts her head, processing this carefully worded admission. Then her eyes widen slightly as understanding blooms across her face. He's my father, isn't he? She asks, and the simple directness of the question shatters every remaining defense in the room. The silence that follows Yuri's question is so complete that Amara can hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears, can hear the soft hum of the fluorescent lights overhead, can hear the distant sound of a cart rolling down a corridor somewhere far away. Time seems to suspend itself, holding its breath, waiting for someone to shatter the frozen moment with words that will change everything. Seo Juan's face transforms through a dozen emotions in the span of seconds. Shock that she figured it out so quickly, wonder at her perceptiveness, fear of saying the wrong thing, and something that looks achingly like hope struggling against the weight of 9 years of absence. Amara feels her throat close up completely. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. She'd imagined this conversation 1,000 times during sleepless nights, always in the distant future when Yuri was older, more mature, able to understand complicated adult failures and the messy reality of broken relationships. Not now. Not like this. Not with her daughter standing in a hospital conference room asking the question that would reshape her entire understanding of her own identity. Yes, Seo Juan answers before Amara can formulate a response, his voice breaking on that single syllable. He drops to one knee, bringing himself to Yuri's eye level with a grace that suggests reverence, as if he's approaching something sacred and fragile. Yes, I am. And I'm so sorry I wasn't there. I'm so sorry you had to grow up without knowing me. Yuri studies him with those intense dark eyes. His eyes, everyone can see it now, the genetic inheritance that can't be denied. And her expression is impossibly complex for a child. There's no anger there, no accusation, just a kind of ancient wisdom that children sometimes possess when they've spent years sensing the gaps in their own stories. Did you know about me? She asks. And the question is so direct, so cutting, that Amara feels it like a physical blow. No, Seo Juan says immediately, honestly. I didn't know. Your mother and I, we had a terrible misunderstanding 9 years ago. I made a mistake, the biggest mistake of my life, and by the time I realized the truth, she was gone. I tried to find her, but she disappeared. I didn't know she was pregnant. I didn't know you existed until 4 days ago when I saw you in that hospital room. Yuri processes this information with the same careful attention she applies to her schoolwork, to her drawings, to everything she approaches. But you know now, she states rather than asks. Yes, now I know, and His voice cracks, and he has to take a moment to compose himself. Amara has never seen him like this, stripped of all the armor and control that defined the man she once knew. I know I have no right to ask for anything. I wasn't there for your first word, your first step, your first day of school. I missed 8 years of your life because of my own stupidity. But if you'd let me, if your mother would let me, I'd like to try to be part of your life now, even just a small part. Yuri turns to look at Amara, and there's a question in her gaze that goes deeper than words. The child is asking permission, yes, but she's also asking something more profound. She's asking if it's okay to want this, to feel drawn to this stranger who somehow doesn't feel like a stranger at all, to explore a connection that DNA whispers about, even when logic has no explanation. Amara feels tears sliding down her cheeks before she even realizes she's crying. She's spent 9 years being strong, being the mother and father both, being everything Yuri needed without complaint or hesitation. But watching her daughter stand between two halves of her genetic heritage, seeing the resemblance that's so obvious now it hurts, feeling the weight of secrets that she carried alone for so long, it's too much. The dam breaks. Oma, don't cry, Yuri says softly, moving to her mother with the kind of instinctive care that shouldn't exist in someone so young. She wraps her small arms around Amara's neck and whispers, It's okay. I'm not angry at you. I understand why you didn't tell me. Those words, that forgiveness offered so freely by a child who hasn't even heard the full story, break Amara completely. She holds her daughter and sobs in a way she hasn't allowed herself to sob since the night she left Seoul with nothing but a backpack and a positive pregnancy test, and a heart shattered into pieces too small to count. Jin Woo quietly exits the room, giving them privacy. Mrs. Han remains in the doorway, tears streaming down her own face, watching her granddaughter comfort her daughter with a maturity that shouldn't be possible. When Amara finally gets control of herself, pulling back to wipe her eyes, Yuri is looking at her with such pure love and understanding that it makes the tears threaten to start again. You took care of me by yourself all this time, Yuri says, and it's not a question. You worked really hard so we could have a good life. Grandmother told me stories about how you used to study medical books while I slept, how you'd go straight from your job to classes and then come home to take care of me. You did everything alone because you had to. I did it because I love you, Amara manages to say through the tightness in her throat. More than anything in this world. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, even when everything else was falling apart. Yuri nods solemnly, then turns back to Seo Hwan, who's still kneeling on the floor watching this exchange with an expression of absolute devastation and awe. I have a question, Yuri announces. If you could go back and change what happened, would you? Would you want to know about me from the beginning? Seo Hwan doesn't hesitate. Yes, without question. I would give anything, everything I own, everything I've built, to go back and do it right. To believe your mother when she needed me to believe her. To be there when she found out she was pregnant. To hold her hand during your birth. To wake up for midnight feedings and change diapers and watch you take your first steps. His voice breaks again. I can't change the past, but if you'll let me, I promise I'll never miss another important moment in your life. Yuri considers this with her characteristic thoughtfulness, then says something that stops everyone's heart. Alma works really hard to take care of people's hearts at the hospital. Maybe it's time someone helped take care of hers too. The wisdom in those words, spoken by an 8-year-old child, hangs in the air like a blessing and a challenge, and an invitation all at once. Amara stares at her daughter, this miracle of a human being who somehow managed to grow up kind and perceptive and emotionally intelligent despite, or perhaps because of, the unconventional circumstances of her life. I don't want you to disappear before I get to know you, Yuri says to Seo Hwan, and the simple honesty of it makes him close his eyes against tears he's no longer trying to hide. I've always wondered what having a father would be like. And now you're here, and you have my eyes, and when I look at you, it feels like looking at a piece of myself I didn't know was missing. She reaches out her hand toward him, small, trusting, brave, and Seo Hwan, This man who once commanded empires and made hardened people tremble takes that small hand in his like he's been given something infinitely precious and infinitely fragile. The days following the revelation move with a strange new rhythm, like learning to walk again after an injury. Tentative, uncertain, but slowly finding balance. Amara establishes rules with the precision of a surgeon making incisions. Supervised visits only, limited duration, public locations, and absolutely no promises about the future until everyone has had time to adjust to this seismic shift in their lives. Seo Juan agrees to everything without negotiation, without the arrogance that once defined him. He's different now, humbled in a way that suffering and regret can humble a person, stripped of the certainty that used to armor him against doubt. He checks into a small hotel overlooking Tongyong Harbor, rather than returning to Seoul, telling his business associates that he needs extended time away for health reasons that aren't entirely untrue. The first official meeting happens on a Saturday morning at Dongpirang village, where colorful murals cover the walls of old houses climbing up the hillside. It's neutral territory, public enough to feel safe, interesting enough to give Yuri something to focus on if the emotional weight becomes too heavy. Amara watches from a slight distance as Seo Juan and Yuri walk together along the painted walls. Her mother, Mrs. Han, stands beside her, arms crossed, expression carefully neutral, but eyes sharp with protective scrutiny. He seems sincere, Mrs. Han says quietly, though the words carry an edge of skepticism earned through years of watching her daughter rebuild herself from ruins. But sincerity doesn't erase 9 years of absence. I know, Amara replies, her gaze never leaving Yuri's small figure walking beside Seo Juan's taller one. But she deserves a chance to know her father. I won't let my pain rob her of that. The wisdom in those words surprises even Amara herself. She spent so long protecting Yuri from the truth, from potential hurt, from the complicated reality of her origins, that she forgot her daughter might be strong enough to handle it, might even need it. Yuri points at a mural of a fisherman and his boat, saying something that makes Seo Juan smile. A real smile, unguarded and genuine, so different from the controlled expressions Amara remembers. He kneels down to her level to examine the details she's pointing out, and the gesture is so natural, so instinctively paternal, that Amara feels something shift in her chest. It's not forgiveness. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Not completely. But it's something softer than the anger she's carried for 9 years. Something that acknowledges that people can change, that regret can be genuine, that sometimes the cruelest mistakes are the ones we make when we're most convinced we're right. Tell me something, Mrs. Han says, still watching the pair ahead. If he'd come back 9 years ago, the day after he threw you out, full of apologies and realizations, would you have taken him back? The question catches Amara off guard. She thinks about the girl she was then, 23, pregnant, terrified, her entire world collapsing around her. I don't know, she admits. Maybe, probably. I loved him so much it felt like dying when he didn't believe me. And now? Now I'm not that girl anymore. Amara's voice is steady, certain. I'm a mother first. A doctor. A woman who survived and built something real from nothing. I don't need him to complete me or validate me. But Yuri deserves a father if he can be the father she needs. Mrs. Han nods slowly, respect flickering in her eyes. You've become very wise, daughter. Much wiser than I was at your age. They continue walking, maintaining their distance, but staying close enough to intervene if needed. Seo Juan buys Yuri a small ice cream from a street vendor, and the child beams up at him with such unguarded joy that Amara feels her throat tighten. When was the last time Yuri looked that purely happy? When was the last time she had someone besides her mother and grandmother to share simple moments with? As they walk, Yuri chatters about school, about her drawings, about the marine biology books she loves to read. Seo Juan listens with complete attention, asking questions that show genuine interest, and Amara realizes he's not performing for her benefit. He genuinely wants to know everything about this daughter he missed knowing for 8 years. At one point, Yuri stops in front of a mural showing a family, mother, father, child, standing together watching the sunset. She stares at it for a long moment, then looks back at Amara and Seo Juan with an expression that's impossibly ancient for her young face. Can we take a picture? She asks suddenly. All of us together? Not because we're a normal family, but because we're us, whatever that means. The request is so simple, so profound in its acceptance of complexity that Amara feels tears prick her eyes. She looks at Seo Juan, who's looking back at her with a question in his gaze, asking permission, asking if this is okay, asking if they can have this small moment of pretending that broken things can be reassembled into something new, even if it doesn't look like the original. Okay, Amara hears herself say, moving toward them. One picture. Mrs. Han pulls out her phone, shaking her head with a mixture of exasperation and affection. Stand together then. Closer. Yuri, stand between them. They arrange themselves awkwardly, Yuri in the middle holding both their hands, Amara and Seo Juan on either side maintaining careful distance, even as they're connected through their daughter. Mrs. Han takes several photos, and in the last one, Yuri suddenly grins and pulls their hands together so they're all linked. When they review the photo later, Amara will see what the camera captured. Not a perfect family or a fairy tale reconciliation, but three people trying to find their way forward through complicated territory without a map. Yuri looks radiant. Seo Juan looks grateful and sad and hopeful all at once. And Amara looks like someone who's finally allowing herself to believe that maybe, just maybe, closure doesn't always mean endings. As they prepare to leave the village, Yuri turns to both of them with characteristic directness. So, what happens now? Do I get to see you again? She asks Seo Juan. If your mother allows it, I'd like that very much, he says, looking to Amara for confirmation. Amara takes a deep breath, feeling the weight of this decision, of all the decisions that will follow. We'll take it slowly, she says firmly. Weekly meetings to start, always supervised, and Yuri's emotional well-being comes first, above everything else. If at any point this becomes too much for her, we stop. Understood? Understood. Seo Juan agrees without hesitation. Thank you, Amara, for giving me this chance. I know I don't deserve it. You're right, Amara says bluntly, but there's less ice in her voice now. You don't, but Yuri deserves a father who will show up and stay. So don't make me regret this. I won't, he promises, and something in his tone suggests he understands the magnitude of what he's being given. Not forgiveness, not reconciliation, but opportunity. A chance to become someone worthy of the daughter he never knew he had. As they walk back toward the parking area, Yuri reaches for both their hands again, creating a bridge between past and present, between pain and possibility. She swings their joined hands slightly, humming a tune from a song she learned at school, completely at peace, in a way that suggests children understand truths about love and family that adults complicate with their wounds and pride. Now we can be a family, Yuri announces. Not the regular kind, the different kind. Is that okay? Amara looks down at her daughter, at this miracle who somehow emerged from heartbreak with wisdom and kindness intact, and feels something very much like hope stirring in her chest. Yes, sweetheart, she says softly. We can be the different kind. We can try. And in that moment, with the painted houses of Tongyong watching like witnesses, with the salt air carrying the scent of the ocean, with three people learning to walk a path that has no name yet, something new begins. Not an ending, not a beginning, but a first step. In the end, this story leaves us standing at the quiet edge of human fragility, where certainty dissolves and only choices remain. Amara and Seo Juan never found an easy road, nor a perfect resolution, but they discovered something far more honest, the courage to face what they once ran from. Life rarely hands us clean conclusions. Sometimes it offers only a narrow path between what hurt us and what might still be worth protecting. So ask yourself, if you held a heart broken by someone you once trusted, would you close the door forever, or risk opening it by a single inch? If a child looked at you with questions you feared to answer, would you tell the truth, or shield both of you from it? And if the past suddenly returned in the form of a second chance, would you take it, or walk away? Stories like this linger because they force us to confront our own thresholds. Not of forgiveness, but of understanding. Not of perfection, but of humanity. And perhaps that is the quiet lesson hidden between these moments. That healing is not about erasing what happened, but about choosing, one step at a time, who we become after it.